And now we're still following up with our segments, and I'm so delighted to be accompanied by the counselor Curise10 Allam, the international law expert. Good evening. First of all, I'd like to welcome you, Nile Cruise.
Good evening to you too, and to all our dear, respected and dear viewers across the globe, and thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Well, of course, now Egypt is celebrating this month lots of victories, which is one of the most prominent one is the October victory. This war can be displayed or should be viewed as not just a victory for the military troops, but also as a humanitarian and moral identity, and of course as moral and humanitarian victory.
Yes, that's very true. Definitely the commemoration and marking the glorious victory of the 1973 War of October. Definitely it's a very integral part of the identity and the national conscience of every Egyptian citizen. It is not only a military commemoration, but furthermore it's a reminder, it's a very vivid reminder of how deeply and how so profoundly committed is the Egyptian army of the ethics of war and the rules of international humanitarian law, and how is it the very basic and the very distinct principles, maxims and rules of IHL or international humanitarian law, such as the principles of distinction, proportionality, the protection of civilians and civilian objects. For the Egyptian army, they have never been solely or merely hot air or just a propaganda or just a lip service. Or just abstract ideals, I would say, but rather they form part and parcel of the creed of the Egyptian army, and its very essence constitute the basic foundation, and it's a framework for its engagement whenever the Egyptian army is compelled to carry arms in defense of the authority of the Egyptian state and the Egyptian people. And we clearly see how is it this is deeply rooted in a faith that goes even further back before the codification and the drafting even of the rules of the international humanitarian law as we come to understand and to comprehend them nowadays, because we clearly see these principles and these rules clearly stated and highlighted in the teachings of Islam and the directives of the noble Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. For instance, we clearly see in the noble Quran the declaration in the verse in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly states وَقَاتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ الَّذِينَ يُقَاتِلُونَكُمْ وَلَا تَعْتَدُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُعْتَدِينَ. That's fight back against those who fight you, and do not transgress, for verily Allah does not love the transgressors. So we clearly see here the direction and the guidance of self-restraint and discipline, and the importance of not to transgress, especially in view of the great significance that Islam attaches to the sanctity and the inviolability of each and every human life. Furthermore, we read clearly in the instructions and the guidance of the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, how is it he would clearly instruct and guide his companions not to commit any act of treason, and not to commit any act of treachery, and not to kill any, under any circumstances, not to kill or to target the life of any child, nor a woman, nor an old man. Furthermore, we read in the teachings of the Prophet upon him that total and the clear prohibition of cutting down trees, or the destruction of crops. So such timeless instructions, they form the bedrock and the very foundation of this long known moral principles of the Egyptian army. And as a matter of fact, we clearly see how is it that even during the time of war, and how voracious the war was, still the soldiers of the Egyptian army remained disciplined, remained observant and committed to the rules of international humanitarian law, because they, as I said and I repeat, they form part and parcel, an integral part of the doctrine of the Egyptian army, and they also constitute an integral part of the national conscience of each and every Egyptian soldier. However, it is also worth highlighting that the Egyptian army and how moral it is, it cannot just be defined by the war of 1973, but even more contemporarily, we see the large contributions of the Egyptian army to international peacekeeping missions all over Africa and beyond, testifying to the fact that the Egyptian army is not an army that is looking forward to carry arms for bloodshed or for conquests or for land expansion illegally and against the rules of international humanitarian law, but rather it is an army that does its best to facilitate humanitarian aid, to protect civilians, to maintain stability, order and rule of law, and even further, they are peace builders. Another very important, in this context, another very important living testimony to the fact that how the Egyptian state and its relevant constitutional institutions are very keen on training and making sure that the rules of international humanitarian law and these ethical principles of war and engagement, they are preserved by each and the Egyptian soldier, but rather we see that Egypt stands as a torchbearer in this regard, both regionally and internationally. For example, through the Cairo International Center for Conflict Resolution, Peacekeeping and Peace Building, and that's CCPA, which actually is one of the prominent institutions in Egypt, and it always makes sure that it provides training, capacity building, skills program for both diplomats and also military personnel, alongside all the concerned professional persons in this regard when it comes to peacekeeping and peace maintenance and conflict amelioration efforts and endeavors. We see how is it always the program is actively engaged with relevant and stakeholders and international partners to make sure that the concerned people are always up to date with the cutting edge skills and knowledge when it comes to the protection of the rules of international humanitarian law. All this attests to the fact that the Egyptian army is not an army that seeks confrontation. It's an army that well respects peace and views it as a necessity, and also views war as only a last resort to maintain peace and security.
Well, of course, Your Excellency, Councillor Hossam Allam, the international law expert, would like to thank you so much for informative interview. And of course, we are so we're so proud that we do have the victories engraved in our history. I'd like to thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, a short break and we'll be back.